The 80-20 aquarium rule: how to do less and get more. Keeping a healthy aquarium can be a lot of work, but studies show that 80% of your results come from just 20% of your effort, commonly referred to the 80-20 rule. So if you focus on the right master variables, you can do less and get much better results. Today, I'm sharing my 80-20 rule for a successful aquascape. These are the 5 things that make the biggest difference in my tanks. First of all, I want to apologize for my voice. I have a cold, but I still wanted to get this video out, so bear with me. I wanted to make this the first tip because I truly believe there are very few things more important than your light when it comes to a planted tank. And I promise you, this will be the only tip in this video about expensive equipment. You could do everything else right and still have a bunch of issues if your light is not good. Lights for planted aquariums are not hard to find, but a light that can grow any plant and take it to its full potential is usually an expensive one. The colors you can get with a high intensity light are just not possible with anything else. When you see professional aquascapes with those gorgeous red colors and deep greens, 80% of that is just the light. You can use the same plants, the same soil, the same fertilizing routine, even CO2, and the plants still won't look the same. That is what a great light does for an aquascape. When I first started in this hobby, I made the mistake of buying a cheap light, and I ended up having to switch it up anyways because it wasn't good enough. So in the end, it cost me more than if I would have just bought the more expensive one from the start. If there is one piece of equipment I recommend you spend some money on, it's your light. A tiny screw in a piece of furniture that you are trying to take apart is the easiest problem to solve if you have a screwdriver. But if you don't have that screwdriver, it can be the most annoying problem in the world. Having a tool for every task can very much change how you view this hobby. And I don't mean expensive tools. Useful tools don't need to be expensive. I'll give you a few examples of tools that I believe every aquarium keeper should have. First, a metal brush to scrape the algae off rocks and wood. Then, bristle brushes to remove hair algae and to clean your lily pipes and skimmer. I also recommend a submersible water pump for your water changes. I personally use 2 pumps for my water changes. I have one that I place in whichever tank I'm working on to take the water out, and another one that stays inside the reservoir tank at all times to pump the new water back in. I also have this little vacuum which I use to remove algae and other debris. It is a very useful tool that I made to be able to clean my tanks without having to remove any water. I've been selling it for a while now and you guys seem to really like it. So I'm doing a 20% off deal on it, just for this month of April. There'll be a link in the description if you want to check that out. If you're enjoying the video, remember to like and subscribe for more weekly videos to help you in your aquarium journey. The plants you choose for your aquarium will absolutely determine how hard you'll have to work. It's easy to see a beautiful plant in a photo and get obsessed with it, but if you don't consider how that plant will grow, you're setting yourself up for a struggle. The first thing you need to check is the maximum height. That tells you if it belongs in the foreground, mid-ground, or background. But the real 80-20 secret is growth speed. Even plants in the same position can grow at completely different rates. Take Rotala rotundifolia and Louisa natans. They are both background plants, but if you put them together, Rotala rotundifolia will 100% drown out Louisa natans. It just grows too fast. If you mix growth rates, you'll be stuck in a cycle of constantly trimming the fast growers just to keep the slow ones alive. A safe bet is usually to stick to the same species, like Rotala rotundifolia and Rotala narrowleaf. But even then, there are exceptions. Rotala wallishi, for example, is much slower. Then you have to consider light. Low light plants, like Anubias, should be positioned in the shadows of your hardscape to avoid algae problems. You can keep them in high light, but it takes 10 times the effort to keep the algae off them. Spending a few hours of time on research before you buy will save you months of struggle. and non-stop maintenance. So take your time and pick the right plants for your setup. It will make your life so much easier. The first thing to understand about fertilization is that you shouldn't rely on your fish to do all the work. Trusting livestock waste to provide every nutrient only works if you have a lot of fish and very few plants. And that is not really what you want, because the less plants you have, the easier it is for algae to take over. You really want to have a good amount of plants. And in a heavily planted aquarium, the waste produced by your livestock is just not enough. So we want to fertilize, but we also want to keep the process simple. The way to do that is by choosing a brand that is actually easy to use. I'm currently using a system that consists of two bottles, just two bottles, macros and micros. The bottles even have a little pump, which makes the daily dose take less than a minute. Now, it's important to remember that if your tank is currently having problems, it's better to use a fertilizer brand that lets you control macros individually. But if your aquascape is stable and you're using plants that complement each other nicely, like we mentioned in the last tip, then using a brand that consists of only two bottles makes fertilizing a breeze. This simplicity is also very efficient when you go on vacation. If someone else is fertilizing for you, it's much safer to ask them to press a pump twice than it is to ask them to dose a bunch of different chemicals on different days. Keeping fertilization simple ensures you stay consistent, and a consistent fertilization routine will do wonders. This will solve 80% of your algae problems. The more experience you have in this hobby, the more knowledge you get, and the easier it becomes to deal with algae. But no amount of knowledge can substitute a good cleanup crew. You need two types of cleaners: algae eaters and scavengers. Some of them can actually be both. You want to cover every surface of the aquarium, so you need a team that covers the glass, the hardscape, and the plants. Not all of them do the same job. For example, Orosinclus are great for the glass and hardscape, but they aren't good for small carpet plants. Amanotrim, on the other hand, are fantastic for carpet plants. Then there is the algae type to consider. Amanos or Orosinclus won't touch green spot algae, but Nidai snails will. My cleanup crew always consists of Orosinclus, horned Nidai snails, and Amanos for the algae, and for scavengers to handle uneaten food, I use Corydoras and Amanos. Perhaps the most important job a scavenger crew does is getting rid of diseased fish. Sometimes a fish dies and we don't realize it. If it stays in the aquarium, it can cause an ammonia spike and lead to major algae problems. It can even affect the rest of your fish if your filtration isn't very stable. Scavengers like Amanos will eat the diseased fish and prevent that ammonia spike without you having to do anything. I'm sure you can find many other algae eaters that are just as good. These are just my personal favorites. If you focus on these few variables, you'll spend less time fighting your aquarium and more time enjoying it. I'd love to hear from you guys. Which of these tips are you going to try first? Or do you have an 80-20 rule of your own? Let me know in the comments.